Well, this is the exciting bit now. What we've got to do is make a ball, and we've got to make a ball that bounces off each of those paddles. And I've got to try and play a two-player game on my own. It sort of sums up my life, really, but I won't bore you with that. So I'm going to want a ball. Now, to be honest with you, what I could do is that I could draw a little white ball, or I think just to make it a bit more modern, that retro version, I think I'm just going to choose a new sprite from File, and if we go to Things, I reckon I can find a little ball in there. What do we think? I think we'll go with the baseball. So that comes in there. Now, of course, I'm thinking that baseball is rather large, so let's reduce that down in size. I've got to keep clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking and clicking and click 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 click. It's probably a little bit on the big side still, but I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just going to basically get the ball, and I'm just going to put it roughly in the middle. That's something we might have to come back to as a start position, but let's just get this ball moving to start with. So once again on here, I'm going to say when the green flag is clicked, I want that ball to move, and I want that to happen forever. So what happens now is that let's face it, when the ball let's just get it just started to move, motion, and I am going to have that move 10 steps forever. Now if I run this, what we find is the ball gets to the edge. Great. I'm thinking that was a bit swift actually, 10 steps. I think that was quite quick. What I might do is reduce that down to 5 steps. Just pull the ball back into the middle. Just think about speed now. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable speed. Just press stop anyway. The thing is, of course, that we want the ball to bounce off the edges. Well, in fact, we want it to bounce off the top edge, and we want it to bounce off the bottom edge. We don't really want to bounce off here and here, because that's like the scoring zones. But let's make it bounce off the edge anyway. So I'm going to just put if on edge bounce. So we're going to do that, and then what will happen now, the ball will just simply bounce backwards and forwards. That's a pretty easy game to play, I feel, when the ball's just going straight. So I think what we'll now do is introduce a little bit of randomness into this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the ball to set off on a sort of a random direction. So what you need to do is quite handy having this center line. If you think of this center line as being like a bearing line, what happens here is, imagine this is pointed north, so this would be a bearing of 0. Coming straight out is a bearing of 90, straight down 360, and this way is going to be a bearing of 270. So what I'd like to do is have the ball start off going to the right, but have it going on a bearing of, well, I guess somewhere between 45 and 90 plus 45, 135. I think something like a random bearing. So let's do point in direction. Now if I do, just to prove a point, what I'll do is come in here and we'll go 45. We'll press enter, and if I press this now, what you find is the ball will then go off in a random direction. But can you see how that's doing forever if? That was my fault, because what I should have done, to say this could get a bit tricky, is that instead of doing that, or was it a deliberate mistake? No, it was my fault. Let's put the ball back. Now we should find that the ball actually begins to bounce off. There you go. But let's face it, that's pretty easy to read which direction it's going to go in. We always know that when you start the game, and actually that's a good point. What we'll do is when we start the game, you'll always notice that the ball will always go off in that direction, because it always says point in direction 45. Now I always want that ball to start in the middle, by the way, so let's solve that right now. I think what we should do is when this thing is clicked, we'll put it in the middle. Now you can tell where the middle is. Well, let's say the middle is around about there, because it says x8 minus 8 and y minus 6. In fact, it should be 0 to 0. So I'm going to put it smack in the middle here. If I make that 0 to 0, what we'll find now is that whenever we press play, it goes from there. I'm going to press stop here, and watch when I press play again, it goes back from that same point. So that's quite a fair way of starting the game. What we're going to do is make sure the ball always starts in the middle. But I don't want this 45 degrees. Let's introduce a little element of randomness in this. So how are we going to introduce randomness? Not a problem. Point in, go to numbers, pick random. Instead of, let's make that, let's see if we can drag this over a little bit so we can see it. I pick a random number, let's say between 45 and 135. Happy with that? Okay, press play. Went pretty flat that time. Let's press play again. Oh, it went down that time. Let's press play again. Pretty horizontal that time. So now what we have is a ball that starts off, yes, admittedly it's always going to go to the right, if you like, but hey presto, we'll have to accept that. I mean, I could, if I really wanted, have a random number between 0 and 360, but that's going to generate me a problem if it goes off at a very vertical like that. That's going to be a pain. In fact, if it was to go off at 0 or 360, it's always going to basically bounce up and down. So I'm kind of stuffed. To make things life easier for me, I said I'm going to go with 45 to 135 as being my random numbers, and just accept it's going to go to the player on the right first of all. I could overcome that, but for the moment I think we'll leave that. If you want to try and find a better solution to make it go right or left at the beginning, I'm going to let you have a crack at that. So what we now want to do is that, I think actually what we'll do is we've got the ball going off. To give you a chance to do this and you have a little play, why don't you go and solve this video first, and then what we'll do is when you come back we'll have a look at making it ping off the paddles.